Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I trust everyone is safe and well. Welcome to this week's Open Classroom webinar. Today's webinar will be the third in our three-part version 8.4 pre-launch webinar mini-series, with the official launch of Civil Designer 8.4 being next week, Monday, the 3rd of August. If you missed the first two version 8.4 pre-launch webinars, please find recordings of these on our website, www.civildesigner.com, on the FAQ page, which is under the Services pull-down menu, along with the remainder of our lockdown webinars, which now total 51 in number. Back to today, where we will once again be joined by Christopher Smith, Cameron Boyle, and Andrew Cole, who will be covering the modules listed on your screens right now. During the three presentations today, please feel free to use the text chat service on your GoToWebinar floating app to ask us any questions that you may have during the three presentations. So, good afternoon again, Chris, and please take it away.
Thanks, Charles, and welcome everybody to this webinar where we will be looking at the new rainfall settings in Civil Designer 8.4. Here, I'll be looking at the South African rainfall settings. These rainfall settings can be accessed through a few different places. The quickest route is going to the Stormwater mode, Edit Rainfall Settings. The main thing here will be to calculate your total rainfall and therefore your intensity on your site. Here you can use the DDF, which is the original as per the previous versions of Civil Designer, or you can move over to the new system, which is the South African Weather Service grid. With the previous DDF method, with the rational method, you would choose the return period, the rainfall intensity, and the time step, as well as a couple other items. Civil Designer would then calculate it for you. With this method, you are still able to use the map feature that comes with 8.4. Let's have a look at the map. As this is the South African Weather Services map, if you right-click and you choose the provinces, you can graphically see the boundaries for where the data can be extracted from. Here, you'll be able to click on the search button and search for any street address within the South African boundaries. And let's go and pull up Durban, and we'll search for that. While you can search for a city, the location that it finds in minutes, because the grid is in minutes, might be far away from your site. So it's always a little bit better to search for a location with a street number and name. Here I've searched for a 30 Meridian Drive, and it's taken me to that location, which happens to be far away from the point. If I had searched for just Durban alone, it would have taken me to the center of Durban. The weather patterns might be different between those two, I'm not sure, but always safe than sorry. Rather choose the location of your site itself rather than the city. It's pulled through this information, which I can then accept and press OK. Civil Designer has now pulled in all the depth duration data from the South African Weather Service for that point. More specifically, Civil Designer has brought us in the information for the upper and the lower of the 2-year flood, as well all the way to the 200-year flood for the different storm durations. If we change over to the South African Weather Service grid, you'll see it brings in the coordinates of the location we brought in from the map. It'll now bring in the MAP from that location. Civil Designer will then calculate the total rainfall that you get at that location. Let's have a look at the total rainfall in millimeters for the return period of 2 years and the storm duration of 60 minutes. We then ensure that we are on the default bound. We'll go over to the graphs and look at the 2-year 60-minute event. Here you can see the results for the 2-year 1-hour duration is 33.25 millimeters. Let's go back to the calculation and see that that's come through. Here you can see the results of 33.25 millimeters has come through to the main dialog. You are able to change the return period here or during the analysis stage. Civil Designer will retrieve and update the data that you require. If you choose a return period not in the map data, for instance a 7-year return, Civil Designer will interpolate data for you. Pressing save and pressing OK will save this information to your stormwater model. Now for the next step, if we go to Analyze Network, you will see that the rational method has a new dialog. Here, you can choose the storm profile that you would like. You can either have a custom, which you will then need to select an STM storm file, which you may remember from previous versions, or you can choose to bring in the data that you previously saved in the previous dialog by using the Chicago, rectangular, or triangular storms. And if you choose to go for triangular, you will then see the storm values that you previously collected. You then can go back to the stormwater settings and change any of the parameters should you wish, making the analysis dialog interconnecting with the rainfall settings dialog. One last thing, when it comes to your Chicago storm as well as your triangular shaped storms, the IDF parameters as well as your ratio of peak to duration will be found under your storm profile settings. These items will be stored along with your rainfall settings in your SD8 file. We then can change over to the Chicago and we can run our analysis. I'm going to use the renumber branches and recalculate lengths, as this is a new network that I'm running. Click finish and we can click OK. I then have my results. You can see that I've got 128 cubic meters for the 1 hour of storm event, as well as my peak flow in cubic meters per second. I can then go through to view link hydrographs, and there you can see your different hydrographs. You can also use the wheel of the mouse to scroll between the different ones. I can also go through to my multiple hydrographs, and there you can see, well, in this case, I've just got 2 hydrographs flowing through. The next item that I'd like to talk about is the ability to drape your sewer lids, your stormwater lids, as well as your stormwater catch pit slabs onto the road's final surface. So if we go ahead and have a look at that, we can zoom into our catch pit over here. You would need to go through to Settings, DTM Surfaces, and ensure that you include your strings model in the soft extraction. So you can click on that and you can choose your design analysis to be final levels. So it's picking up the final levels of the road everywhere in the footprint of the road. So it's from the edge of the embankment to the other edge of embankment. So that includes your sidewalks. We can click OK. You must also remember to go and say graphical and update your cover levels. And once that is done, you can then go through to your display settings. I'm going to switch off my height shading at this stage because we're going to be showing our items in rendered view and the roads are in some places are in cut. I'm going to go through to my stormwater and I want to show it in 3D in the plan view. So at the moment it's in a 2D schematic form, so I want to show it in a 3D form, and so that you can see how to adjust it. So you need to make sure that you are at the right angle for your catch pit, for instance. We go to properties. You can see you can change your angle and you can also choose to auto line it with the road. That is for changing its angle. You can go back to 2D as you don't need that for the render view. You can now see that the concrete slab is draped to the shape of the road automatically. You won't have to worry about shaping the manhole top slab. Let's zoom to our drain. So you can see here is the lid, and that's also top slab is draping the road surface itself so that it tilts with the road. And then up the road here I've got another catch bit that I have draped with the road. So that will aid you with an absolute drape of the sidewalk with the top slab. Great, that's all I have time for today. I hope that helps you with your designs, and have a great day further. Back to you, Charles.
Wow, Chris, that was great. Thank you very much. We're now going to be handing over to Cameron, who will be continuing with the new version 8.4 functionality included in the roads module. Good afternoon, Cameron. Please take it away.
Good afternoon, Charles, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the road session of today's webinar. Looking at the project in front of us, I'm going to first be showing you the enhancements of editing the roundabout design in 8.4. Then moving on to the second project, we will be looking at the additional functionality introduced into the report quantities function. If you joined us for our previous webinars, you may find this project familiar, where I discussed in detail via a history lesson on how to design the roundabout using the Stockdale method. Today, let's look at how we can edit this junction. First of all, I'm then going to turn on the CAD layer that we'll use to edit the junction. It may be that at some quadrants you want to make minor changes, in some quadrants you want to make major changes, and on some quadrants you don't want to make a change at all. If I go to Junctions, Edit Junction, and select the junction. If you've done this roundabout design in version 8.4 of Civil Designer, you'll see that there's a tab there that is active called Edit CAD Targeting. Looking at my options on the top, we got yes, no, and continue. If I do go and select continue, it goes back to the previous dialog. Clicking on the option again, and then reading my prompt. Do you want to change the circle crown line targets? Looking in your plan view, Civil Designer goes and highlights the target for me. If I want to make changes here, I click on the Yes tab, but in this case, I'm then going to select No. Moving on to crown line number 1, you can see the entities used to design crown 1 has been highlighted. If I want to make changes to this, I would go and select Yes. Indicating crown line number 1, I go and select this CAD line. Right click and extract string. I'm going to change my snap mode by pressing Shift J on the keyboard, selecting the entry point and then the exit point, and then selecting my road edge. Once it's all selected, I go and right click and extract string. With both lines highlighted, am I satisfied with crown line number 1? If I were to select no here, I could go and redefine the entities. In this case, I'm happy, so I'm then going to select yes. Do you want to change crown line number 2? I'm going to select yes. Right click and extract string. Select my entry point and my exit point. And select the road edge line. Right click and extract. I'm satisfied with the selection set, so I click on yes. Looking at crown line number 3, click on yes. With this example, I've gone and used more than one entity to define crown line number 3, just to show you that if you do make a mistake, you can go and right click and redefine the last entry. Selecting it again, and then right click and extract. Selecting the entry point and the exit point. Selecting road edge number 3, and then right click and extract. I'm happy with line number 3, so I click on yes. And then looking at crown line number 4, I'm not going to make any changes, so I click on no. It brings up that dialog box. It gives me the option to go and change my lane width, crossfall, and tie-in slope. we presented with the long section of the crown line. You have the options to go and make changes here. You can go and specify which display settings to use. And on the left-hand side, we give you tools in order for you to go and change the design. In 8.4, you'll see there's an additional icon here to apply a spline through a point. Let's look at that function in more detail. I'm going to go to the display settings. I'm going to switch everything off and then just switch on the crown line. And then going to this icon, I'm going to indicate the start vertex, indicate the end vertex, and then define my own point that the spline needs to run through. You can see that the long section has been updated. Clicking on close, and in this case I won't save it. Going through the redesign, we then extract the cross sections. So you'll see from this that you have additional functionality to edit a roundabout design. Moving on to the next project, we then go to the report quantities. In 8.4, when working with curbs, the curb group path option is applied to the entire project instead of to individual roads. If we go to our control center here, making Cambridge Road our current road, and then going to Tools, Curb Groups. You'll see we've got 5 existing curb groups for this particular road. Moving on to another road, I'm then going to close that. Let's go and select Victoria Road, make it our current road. Going back to Tools and selecting Curb Groups. You can see we got the 5 same groups. Now I'm going to go and load a group here. Going to Examples and selecting Curbs. Vanstone curbs, and then combination curbs, which we don't currently have as an option. With the new curb group loaded, I'm then going to close this, go back to Cambridge, make it the active road, and if I go back to Tools, Curb Groups, you'll see now that the new curb group is included, and that would be applied to all the roads in this project. Looking at the new quantities functionality, if we go back to area volume, select mass haul volume, you'll see that we've included an option here of roadbed prep. Now this is a function that some of our clients have requested and will be applied according to the Colto spec. As the designer, you would go and specify a wellbed prep depth, in this case 200. And then looking at the Colto spec, I'm just going to cancel this and open up the Colto example. This will be applied to dual as well as single carriageway roads. Looking at the single carriageway road on the right-hand side over here, when the layer works of your road falls below the ground line, then we use the layer work line to determine your roadbed. Looking on the left-hand side, whenever the ground line is beneath the layer works, we use the ground line to determine your roadbed. Returning back to Civil Designer and going back to area volume, mass haul volume. Also take note of the design data source. This is something I'll point out when we use the report quantities function. Click on calculate. And results to output. Just making my output bar bigger. Over here you can see the new roadbed preparation volume reported. If in 8.4 you go to area volume and you go and select report quantities, you'll see we've got a new tab at the bottom called Volume Details. Clicking on this, you can go and specify what to use for your topsoil to strip as well as your compaction factor. And then you can go and specify the design data source as indicated when I did the mass haul volume. If you do go and select cross-section here, Civil Designer will use the layers that you specified per road and click on OK. If I do go and create a customized report, let's call this combo volumes. Specify report type and which roads you want included in this customized report. Pressing Shift and Control. Clicking on Select. Selecting the option. Now in 8.4, if you go and right-click and you go and select Edit Report, you can then go and change the report name. And in this case, let's go and include all the roads. You can see that your report has been updated, and it also includes your roadbed preparation where specified. If you now go and right-click, you have the option to write all to file, where you go and specify which reports or customized reports you want included, and then go and specify if you want to save a CSV file, an XLS file, or both. And before I wrap up, I need to mention that there will be an improved speed in the calculation of string roads in 8.4. Thanks for joining me. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Cam. That was awesome. We're now going to be heading over to Andrew, who will be introducing new functionality included in our Design Center and CAD Pro modules. Andrew, please take it away.
Good day. In my segment of today's webinar, I'm going to be looking at some general Civil Designer 8.4 enhancements. To start off, I'm just looking at the render view settings. If you go into the render view and you wanted to do a fly through or a circle around, you would just right click inside the render view. If you are selecting circle around, you do actually get a preview of the route that the circle around would take. As a default, the circle around was set to run for 8 seconds, but you can set your circle around duration now in the render settings. So last week when I showed the maximize render view, I forgot to mention the circle around time that you can set, so I just thought I'd mention it today. Okay, so just that circle around duration. Then moving on to the parallel copy function, our development team have improved on this algorithm to make parallel copies of especially polylines. So if I draw a parallel copy and I'm going to use a 0.5 offset, 11 additional copies that I'm making, parallel copies. You can see now we can handle just about any situation with ease. So those acute angles, the bulges, everything is perfectly done with this new algorithm, which can then also be implemented in some of our other functionality, especially in the roads. So looking forward to that. Then I just want to move on to the snap and clip tidy function. With this function, it's basically going to tidy up your drawing and join all lines that are not quite connecting. So you've got a snap tolerance where the endpoints of the lines aren't meeting. You've got a dangle tolerance where lines are extending too far, for example like that, or you've got an undershoot where the lines aren't quite reaching the other lines. We've also got a minimum entity length where you've got short little segments of line which you want to have removed. And then we've also got to check for duplication, so duplicate lines. So if I use my control key to do that selection cycling, you'll see that there are multiple lines in these positions indicated by the arrows. Okay, so I'm going to run that function. It's the tools, snap and clip tidy function. Then you'll just have to set your various settings. The snap tolerance is like a proximity check. So if the endpoints of two lines are closer together than your specified tolerance, the lines will be extended to join up. With the minimum entity length, any line shorter than the specified length will be deleted. And then with the dangle tolerance, if the overshoot or undershoot of intersecting lines is less than your specified tolerance, then they will be trimmed. The lines will be trimmed or extended to intersect. And the merge overlapping entities, I'm going to select as well so that it removes those duplicate lines. And then we just have to indicate the area that we want to work in with this polygon. So just tracking around the whole area, right click finish. And you can see in the output window all the lines that were removed, the snap points joined, clip points trimmed, etc. Okay, I just close my output window and we can have a little closer look at the results. So everything looks very neat. If we look at those undershoots, overshoots, everything's been trimmed neatly. So I'll just switch off those circles and arrows to something. The new visible layers has a bold text for the current layer. It's red and in bold text. Okay, so you can see everything looks very neat. And I showed this, although they've improved on it, I just wanted to show it in conjunction with the parcels functionality that's been added in 8.4. So with the parcels now, we're creating a record for every earth, and that would be based on the cadastral lines for your earth boundaries. So with the parcels, you would generally use the survey module to create parcels. So you can create from stand numbers. So if you have a CAD layer with all the stand numbers on it, the property numbers, you can then automatically create the parcels. You can see how quick and easy that is. And then there are one or two on the edge here that haven't been created. So those I could do graphically. And I'll just run through quickly to add a few with the automatic tracking. So there I just need to use a freehand snap just to click inside. And you would just specify your property earth number. Okay, there is also an option to do it manually with polygon points. You just click on each corner point of your property boundary. Right click finish, and then I'll just do the last one with the automatic tracking again. And it's just a matter of entering the earth number. Okay. So the parcels are being used currently to do the automatic water connections and the automatic sewer property connections. But you can also be using it for your street numbers, so the house number. I'm just going to do some even numbers on the side of the road. So I'm just drawing in some street numbers and then the odd numbers on the other side of the road. So these parcels, the functionality will be extended into some of the survey and terrain functions as well in due course. But for now, as I said, it's just being used in the automated water and sewer property connection, which Chris has done a 8.4 video of already. So moving on to the next function, back in the CAD module, we're looking at the drawing of a wipeout. So this is a brand new function that will be available in 8.4. So you just need to define the polygon area where you'd like to mask the background entities. So essentially the wipeout is used to mask underlying objects. If you look in the view settings then, in the view settings under the frames section, you'll be able to set whether you want the frame for the wipeout to be visible or not, and then you can have it visible but not plotted when you plot the drawing. Okay, so I've switched it to not visible, but if I now select that wipeout border, the frame, and I go to properties, you'll be able to see if I change the transparency. Let's go make that 90% transparent. Then you can see we've still got the entities below. So we haven't snipped them out. They're still in the drawing. We're just masking them with that wipeout, new wipeout function. Okay, then I'm going to move on to the next topic for today. For Civil Designer 8.4, we've introduced a layout manager. So for example, in my roads project, I've got multiple layouts. And if you go to this layout pull down menu, the layout manager, you can then control the positioning of your layouts. So instead of having to scroll through to the end of the layout tab at the bottom, you can select layouts in the layout manager and you can move them up or down or move them to the top. And then that would be the first layout next to your drawing tab, which you can then go and have a look at and see what changes are being made as you make changes to your design. If you right click on the actual layout tab, you've also got the options over there with the layout manager included. There is an option as well to select a couple of layouts and then move those up or down or to the top. Okay, so there I've moved 17 and 20. You've also got the option over here to select and make it your current layout. So you could scroll through all the layouts, select one, and then just click on the select button, and then that would be the layout that would be in view and the current layout that you're working with or viewing. So that's definitely a nice improvement to work with your layouts, especially if you have multiple layouts. Okay, and then we've also, just going back to my drawing for Civil Designer 8.4, we've added some new PDF functionality. So if you're exporting to a PDF, you can now select which particular layouts you'd like to create a PDF of. So either from your design area or from all your plotted layouts, you can now select or which of those you'd like to create PDFs of. So this new functionality now allows you to create a PDF directly out of your design space from your layout. So you don't have to publish the layouts to separate drawings and then create the PDFs. So just another added function to save you some time. Okay, so there I've opened up that PDF that was generated. And then the last enhancement to Civil Designer 8.4 that I'm going to touch on today is the preview when you import your PDFs. We've done quite a bit of work on the importing of PDFs, and you now get a preview of your PDF that you're going to be importing. There's also quite a lot of geometry and image optimization that we've been working on with the PDF imports. Because a PDF doesn't work on coordinates, you would obviously need to specify the insert position or reference position for the positioning of your PDF. You can see the prompt at the top. So I'm just going to click on this side of the drawing. You could use the scaling and rotation factor, or you could always modify and scale and move your PDF into the perfect position. But generally the PDFs would just be used as a reference, background referencing tool, and not strictly speaking for the actual design. And that's all I've got time for today. Until next time, cheers.
Thank you, Andrew, Chris, and Cameron, for your classes today. And thank you very, very much to all of you who attended today. Please remember, if you would like any further information with regards to Civil Designer, please use the email address listed on your screens right now. Please also remember that Civil Designer version 8.4 will be released on Monday. That's next Monday, the 3rd of August, and will be available via request on our new look Civil Designer software website. More information with regard to this I cannot reveal at this time. As I stated earlier, all our past lockdown webinars, 51 of them now, can be found on our website on the FAQ page, which is found under the Services pull-down menu. Once again, thank you very much for your time today. See you next week, Thursday, at the same time and same place using the same link for a version 8.4 overview webinar. Have a great afternoon, weekend, and goodbye for now.